Hi, everybody. My name is Scott Arpajian. I'm the CEO of Softonic. And I was originally going to get up and tell you that this was going to be a very different presentation than what you're going to hear today. But then I heard Tomas's story, and I realized we have a bit of a theme going, which is sort of therapy for turnarounds. I might sit down as well. So we had a story that almost wasn't. We had a company that rose to great heights, came crashing spectacularly down, and through a lot of hard work and focus, we were able to kind of turn things around and grow it. First, I want to give you a little bit of background on Softonic, kind of who we are, where we come from. As Kasia introduced, the company's been around a while, about 22 years, founded in Barcelona, Spain, and focused on apps and software download and discovery. It's actually quite a big site, a very large operation. We have 100 million monthly unique users worldwide. We're in every continent, every country, and we're in over 12 different languages. And today we're actually doing quite well. Growth has been quite phenomenal for a company of our age. We did about 15% higher in revenue this past year, and we actually doubled our EBITDA. And so actually things are going quite well. But if you go back to 2014, the company went through a really significant crisis. So after year of growth, the company really hit a cliff and kind of fell spectacularly off. Really what happened is there was a loss of a major contract that sort of cascaded into multiple contracts being lost. The major contract was with a very large search engine that you might be familiar with. And really revenues plummeted, profits vanished, and actually also, again, half the company had to be laid off as a result. Interestingly, this is about where my story begins. So if you fast forward a year to 2015, I was the new CEO, brought in to kind of lead the turnaround effort. I was actually been there for about 3 or 4 months, and my family was moving out from California to join me. And the very same day that my family's flying out, our board is holding an emergency meeting because all the cost cutting that had been done in 2014 wasn't enough. The company was still in very serious trouble. We were looking at actually insolvency. And so the board was meeting to determine whether or not we were going to declare bankruptcy and kind of wash the whole thing out. Lots of fights, arguments, bad feelings, as you can imagine. And I was thinking to myself, okay, this company is about to go bankrupt. My family is actually on a plane headed out here. I was thinking maybe I just go to the airport, meet them, and jump on the return plane and go back. And fortunately, we didn't have to do that. Things worked out. We were able to kind of get the company refocused and restarted. And we learned some really important lessons along the way, some specific actions we were able to take to lead through a significant recovery. And I kind of wanted to share what our learnings were as they might be applicable to your business no matter what stage you're in. So the first one, and the thing we found is the most important, is when your company is in failure mode and things aren't going well, you really manage to piss off a lot of people. And you really have to focus on the core foundation, which is to rebuild trust. In our case, Softonic had lost trust with just about everybody. We had lost trust in the industry. We had lost trust with our users. We had lost trust with employees, investors. And actually, I was a new CEO, and nobody trusted me. Who is this guy? In the case of the industry, we had, again, lost a lot of contracts. We had kind of created a bad feeling within our area. With end users, we had this product called the Softonic installer. When you came to the site, you would download software, and we would bundle things with it. And end users weren't sure what they were getting. Their antivirus products were flagging everything as malware, and they didn't really know what to make of it. I mentioned before we had to lay off about half the staff, and when you do take an action like that, you save a lot in costs, but you create tremendous loss of trust as people don't know how safe their careers are. Investors really just wondered what had happened. Why did everything go so wrong so quickly? And they wanted answers. So, a few things that we did, because we realized that trust is a major issue and we had to take action. A few specific things we did is we immediately ceased the Softonic installer. And I'll kind of get to the impact of that in another slide or two. But that was a big decision that we made, took action to restore trust with our end users, to restore trust with the industry. With employees, we knew that these are the people who had to help us rebuild. And so we invested a really amazing amount of time in terms of meetings, discussions, planning. We brought in outside help. We kind of strategized how we're going to re-engage all of our employees. And with the board and our investors, we simply recommitted to regaining profitability. And we made that our singular focus. And in fact, we're able to get back to operating profitability in just under 3 months following the crisis point. The second thing you have to do is you have to position yourself to take risks. And here I'm not talking about small little risks or calculated ones. This is the time to take big, bold risks. And you have to kind of look at what are the things that can really move your business forward. At Softonic, we did 2 notable risks over the past years that I wanted to share with you. The one I mentioned it before was the removal of the Softonic installer. What I didn't tell you before is this was by far our single largest revenue line by multiples. It was enormous for us. But we realized that, again, going back to trust, by using it, we were creating distrust with our users and within the industry. And so despite it being the revenue driver, we made the simple decision that it had to go. That was a risky decision, and I got a lot of strange looks from our board and from our investors about why would you take out your single biggest revenue line. And it was simply because we couldn't continue, we couldn't grow or move forward unless we took that action. A more recent risk that we took was around cryptocurrency. So we actually last year signed our largest contract in the history of the company, and it looked great. And then there was one catch, which is that the company that we were working with wanted to pay us in a completely unknown and brand new cryptocurrency token. And now the timing is important because this was right after the crypto crash in early 2018, so sort of feeling wasn't particularly high on cryptocurrency or the future of it. But again, we saw it as a very big opportunity, a very big risk, and so we went ahead and moved forward and took a highly valuable contract with lots at stake and took payment in a totally unknown currency. As it happened, things worked out really well. And we ended up earning about 2.5 to 3x the net income that we would have earned if we went the safe route and accepted payment in cash. So again, these are just examples of where when you take risks, you have to take really big, bold ones. Getting used to the fear is key, and you're not really going to get out of your problem area unless you take those big, bold risks. Third thing is a little more subtle, but this was really important for us to understand when we sort of attacked our situation, is you have to challenge your basic assumptions. So look for the things in your business that you take for granted. Maybe the things that have always been working, and they simply just become the way you do things, but they may not be the way you're supposed to do things. And again, tied with risks and trust, challenging your basic assumptions is key. At Softonic, we had sort of 2 key assumptions in 2015 that we openly challenged. One was, if you go back to that time, mobile had pretty much taken over, and we were fundamentally a desktop business. And our assumption was that the desktop business was dead, that it was more something that we could ride out, maybe milk the cow as we tried to get as much revenue on as we could. But we actually challenged that assumption. We said, what if instead of assuming that that business is dead, we just look at how we can reorient it and grow it in a very different way? So we moved the business largely from being sort of standard display banner ads into highly targeted native placements and promotions and distribution. That was a key shift for us that allowed us to move forward and, again, challenge that basic assumption that the business was dead. The other one for anyone who was involved in the media industry at the time in 2015 was the arrival of ad blockers. And these were an existential threat to almost anybody's business if you were running display ads. And instead of sort of assuming that the business was dead, again, what we did is we challenged the assumption. And we looked at, okay, why are users installing ad blockers in the first place? And what we realized is that not just us, but the entire industry had created an environment where it was very difficult and a bad user experience. So again, we went with highly native, integrated promotions and sort of downgraded our use of display banner ads. And then we sort of worked with ad blockers. In fact, we're one of the largest distributors of ad blockers, the very tools that sort of create issues with the industry. So again, challenging the assumptions is key. Ask yourself what's holding yourself back, and don't be afraid to kind of look at things in a very different way. Finally, and this is almost to us as important as the initial one of building trust, and I think they tie very much together, is truly live your values. Now, living your values is kind of a soft skill, and it's very difficult, especially for tech companies who are so used to hard, objective measurements. But it's really binary. You either have, you're either able to build and live to your values or you're not. And at Softonic, we kind of looked at our existing values and we picked out 2 that we thought were absolutely key to our ability to turn the company around. The first was around entrepreneurial spirit. For a company at the time was close to 20 years old, we were acting very much like an old, conservative company. And so we embraced entrepreneurial spirit. We encouraged employees to come up with new ideas, new solutions. We actively rewarded anybody who came up with any idea, even if it was doomed to fail. And in fact, most of our ideas failed. I would say, we looked at this recently, about 85, 90% of the initiatives we tried failed. But the 10 to 15% that were successful in a very big way. And so we really encourage this spirit. The second one was integrity. We really looked at, again, all the problems we had around trust and realized that the company had kind of gone off its path by taking routes that were faster on the revenue, but at a compromise to our integrity. And this is where we said, look, we're going to draw a hard line and live by the value of integrity. Internally, we look at everything we do to make sure that it lives up to our own values of integrity, and we apply the same principle to any company that we work with. We have actually an exhaustive sort of compliance process on any of our partners, not just about whether they're living up to the rules, but are they living up to the same values that we hold so dear. So again, live out your values in everyday decisions. It's absolutely imperative for a successful turnaround. And that's how we did it. The truth is even if you're sort of down for the count and you're facing incredible odds, if you really focus on those four things, rebuilding trust, living by your values, challenging your basic assumptions, and taking big risks, you can be very much on your way. Thank you for your time.